submitting charges against General McKenzie for his bad assumptions. The senior leaders need to be held accountable.
Well, the Lieutenant Colonel's taking his fight to the command. Let's take a gander. Let's go.
Lieutenant Colonel Stu Scheller, I am still, as of making this message, a United States Marine infantry officer. I've been advised through the legal channels that continued challenges to the military and political leadership could result in pretrial confinement and or escalation of my legal situation, which I'll get into momentarily. And I hope that if you support me, you'll share this message because it's that important.
So he's going to put his message out regardless of what his command's telling him. He's telling us that he could get put in prison, right? So I'm not sure, me sitting here today, if I were in his shoes, would I want that? Would I want UCMJ getting out on some other than honorable discharge because of this? This devil dog's one hell of a brave man to take this course of action because they're telling him, just shut up and we won't do anything. But he's going to keep marching forward.
To recap my position in the fallout of Afghanistan, I demanded accountability of my senior leaders. And I stated then that I understood that I might lose my battalion commander seat, my retirement, and my family stability. As it has played out, I have in fact lost all three of those things.
So if you haven't seen the video, he came out and said in his uniform, in his office, that the leadership above him, I'm going to paraphrase here, did a shitty job. I think we all agree, 20 years, no real plan, taking orders from above and not saying, hey, boss, hey, Mr. President, this isn't working. We got to have a new course. They just kept taking orders and people kept dying of what looks like a war we didn't accomplish any goals. Let's keep going.
I was seeing key leaders that weren't being held accountable and were abusing their positions of power at the expense of the everyday American.
Lieutenant Colonel, unfortunately, that happens all the time. Now, these generals may be getting the message from above, right, to implement the plan. Instead of pushing back against them, resigning if they don't like it, they're just taking it. And they know what's going on. They're hearing that from men like you. But they just keep doing the same bullshit. And people keep dying for what course? To what end, right?
And everything that I fought for is counter to that. The future that my sons are going to grow up in is contingent upon the organization being able to evolve, which only happens through accountability.
There is no accountability, right? You see young officers getting burned, piles of enlisted guys getting burned, spending lots of energy to burn guys and get them on the front page of the paper. Meanwhile, you never hear shit about a general who made a bad call. They'll get the battalion commander, they'll get the company commander, but you ever see anybody above that? No, as sure as hell don't. And I don't know why. I could speculate. Speculation is they're getting orders from politicians and they don't want to out them. My 2 cents.
Offered me a very fair deal. Instead of court-martial, they've offered me non-judicial punishment for violation of 2 articles, as long as I'm willing to resign my commission, give up my retirement, and accept a general discharge under honorable conditions, which is pretty fair. But the deal hasn't been signed. I haven't agreed to it, neither have they, and I acknowledge that making this video might destroy that deal. And if the Marine Corps, after...
How is it fair? We look at what these ass-white politicians do all the time. They get out there and say, America's a terrible place. We got Ilhan Omar saying that we're just like the Taliban. Now, these are elected officials can say this kind of crap. This guy comes out and challenges the leadership saying, hey, they didn't do the best job. Did they take any accountability for it? Even after what happened on the departure from Afghanistan, the manner in which we did it, no one took responsibility. Meantime, this guy's going to get out with a general discharge, which is not a good thing. It's not dishonorable, at least. And he's got to sit here and deal with these assholes that keep sending people off to battle every day and take no responsibility whatsoever for their decisions.
Believe it or not, I don't want to start controversy. I didn't make it 17 years in the Marine Corps and as a battalion commander by saying whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. But as I sat here and looked at the fundamental changes that needed to take place in our key organizations, I just didn't see anyone else speaking up. To all the retired generals that wrote a very strongly worded letter to the current military establishment asking for resignations, I asked that those general officers show themselves, be prepared to give up their retirement and fight with me.
That just won't happen, right? People are not going to give up their retirement to fight for the bigger cause. As noble as it is, they're not going to do it. They may get on CNN and say something. You saw what happened with General Miley recently. Commits a form, subversion for sure, maybe treason, and he's celebrated. That's what our leadership is right now.
Not. I do think that there are some inspirational voices still left in the political establishment. Reference Congressman Mast, Congressman Crenshaw's testimony against Secretary of State Blinken. I was inspired by some of those lines of questioning. However, I don't think that their voices are enough to spark the change that's required within the military establishment. Hence the reason I'm wearing this uniform now and making this video, because I think there's a fundamental change that needs to take place, and somehow we're missing it.
There's been a fundamental change for a long time in this war. In particular, 20 years of battle that this man's been through, and we never had a plan. Rules of engagement are constantly changing. We take territory, give territory up. We set up base camps and valleys. You just kind of scratch your head and go, who's running this war? And it's not the fine Marines like this. It's the asswipe generals at the top who never have any accountability, never lose anything.
The reason I can't let it go, and the reason I am not just taking the offer and quietly exiting out the Marine Corps, is because I feel like there are general officers in our institution that aren't being held accountable. But why General McKenzie, who was the CENTCOM commander from Trump to Biden, didn't have to answer those same tough questions? Afghanistan has been a DoD run and led mission for the last 20 years. Why the Department of State is taking the face shots to the fall is beyond me.
Well, you got to figure, I'm going to speculate here. So that general is getting information from all sorts of politicians, right? Layers of politicians, bureaucrats. If he comes out and says, I was following the orders I was given from above, I don't think it comes from the president per se. I think it comes from the underlings and the bureaucracy. They want to get out and they want that commentator gig on CNN. They want to be a political advisor. It's not as much about the pension as it is the top secret clearance so they can do government work and also get out there and make money on the media circuit.
I think it may have to do with the post-Vietnam generation that feels the need to show respect to service members to the expense of not offering criticism that I think our General Officer Corps rightfully needs. I think history has demonstrated that general officers don't always have the right answer. Before I get into my way forward, there's one other comment I want to make, and that's to General Berger, the Commandant of the Marine Corps. General Berger, sir, your pivot and transition to the next fight, I think, is admirable, and I think it's for all the right reasons. But I offer to you, if you can't hold senior leaders accountable, then it's all for nothing. You had a predecessor that talked about an awakening. He talked about the role of the Commandant was to protect the very soul of the Marine Corps. But he focused on the NCOs that, in my opinion, have fought very bravely.
Yeah, we're always focusing on the underlings, like burn a young sergeant for doing something that's trivial in warfare. Burn a young captain for something. But never go, maybe a major, but you never see somebody of this man's rank, or a colonel or a general getting burned. They step aside and go on to some desk job till they get their next level of retirement. And it's somewhat the good old boys network. It appears that way because, as he said, you never see upper-level management taking responsibility. We go to the NCOs and jamming on them. The young guys are actually fighting the battles, earning the medals and ribbons, not sitting on their ass somewhere.
And valiantly for the last 20 years. I do believe there's an awakening that needs to take place, but it's not at the NCO level. It's at the general officer level, the people that are not being held accountable, the people that are leading this organization. And I ask that you use your leadership to use some introspection and look at the problems that are occurring. I'd also like to address General McKenzie. You made comments that are public record on August 31st that stated you made bad assumptions, that you left hundreds of Americans in Afghanistan, and then you itemized pieces of equipment that total hundreds of millions of dollars. I know you are a great American. I know you didn't intend to fail. I know you have served very honorably.
I don't care whether he intended to fail, didn't intend to fail. Anywhere else, any organization, you get fired. That's the way it works. This honorable nature in which we treat these generals has a place. And if they're up to the level of accountability, we should say, you're fired, buddy. You sucked at your job. It's time to hang it up. Move on.
I I've read the entire UCMJ in the last 2 weeks of my purgatory and all the punitive articles, and it turns out that all military officers are subject to the UCMJ. It's because it appears to me that no general officers are willing to hold each other accountable. I am submitting charges against General McKenzie for his bad assumptions.
Here's the thing. I hope it works for Lieutenant Colonel. I don't see it happening. He'll go by the wayside. He'll pop up on some news network giving commentary, and nothing will happen. That's the unfortunate reality where I see it today. We've got this schism where the leadership, the elite in the military, won't take responsibility. We're going to pin it on. This is probably the highest level person I've seen it pinned on, where he comes out and says something. Usually you're going to burn the sergeant, the cap, lieutenant rank, and say, well, they just were rogue. It's not our responsibility.
I will drop the charge sheet so you can see my legal argument on social media. I will route it through my chain of command. I will also route it directly to the former Raytheon board director, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. And then concurrently, I will file an IG complaint, and then we'll just see where that goes.
Wow. I don't know where that's going to take him. This is going to get bigger before it gets smaller unless they squeeze him so hard he just shuts down and goes out quietly into the night. I can't imagine anything good's coming out of this for him and his family.
Additionally, I'm starting a foundation to raise money through the Pipe Hitter Foundation. We'll drop the link. It'll be live on Monday, where people can donate to my family that's moved on to the next chapter, and also to raise legal fees for the legal argument I'm making against the CENTCOM commander.
Well, I've got the link to his channel in the original video in the description, so if you want to help the man out, I think that'd be a great thing for you to do, because there's very few guys like this anymore. No one wants to give up anything for the greater good. Thanks for watching.